The following deck tag is brought to you by Dragon Shields, the best sleeves in the business, and CARDMARKET, the best place to get your boosters and singles in Europe. Check out the link in the description below to find out a voucher to get a free booster. Now let's head into the deck.
What are you doing here?
I'm going to lead Mordor to victory.
If you want to brew a orc deck, you have come to the right place. We are going to build a orc deck that is themed around Lord of the Rings, that is themed around the orc mechanic Amass, and that mechanic, when it appears on a card, you create a token and you put a 1/1 counter on it for each Amass it has. So a lot of Amass cards in the deck. Of course, we're also going to play the Dark Lord Sauron to be on team for this great orc deck that's gonna have a big army of orcs at the end. Let's go! So we're gonna start with the creatures. First, this Dunland Creebane. It's a bird, it's a 1/1 flying, but when it enters the battlefield you amass, so you create a 2/2 orc. Then if you would play this Vanguard, next to it the orc army grows bigger with amass 1, and it's the same for this Lieutenant. And of course your creature tokens would have that touch. We're gonna play this Brash Instigator as well, great card that also amasses orcs. And with this Scavenger you can also amass orcs. So they all help to build a big army of orcs. Saruman the White Hand. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, amass orcs X, where X is this spell's mana cost and your orcs get ward 2. The Mount of Sauron also works great with your instants and sorceries. And of course we're gonna play Sauron the Dark Lord. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, amass 1. It also has ward, sacrifice a legendary artifact or creature, and whenever an army you control deals damage, you have the ring Tempt You. And whenever it does that, you can discard your hand and draw 4 cards. We play black, blue and red, and if you wanna do some card draw, do some discarding, or you have your opponent hit in the face by a big serpent, this is a great card. I wanted to find a home for it for a long time. And these Goblin Dark Dwellers are also quite on team, on flavor. 4 menace that have you play a instant and sorcery for 3 for free. This flavorful trebuchet is really funny. If you attack with an orc or a goblin, you create a flying attacking 2/1. Now let's look at 2 legendary orcs. Ugluk of the White Hand. This one gets stronger when creatures you control dies. And Mohur, Uruk-hai Captain, he's great with the mechanic of amass. While for every amass you play, you add an extra counter. Now it's time to look at some enchantments in the deck. Let's go! First we play Book of Mazarbul. Over 2 turns you create a 3/3 amass orc army, and then you can give it menace and +1/+1. I play 2 copies. The next one is another enchantment, also a red card, and it's Fall of Caer Andros. For 8 mana you can deal 7 damage to target creature, and you can do that all over again. And when a creature an opponent controls is dealt excess non-combat damage, amass X orcs, where X is the excess damage. And March from the Black Gate is the last enchantment of the deck. It also makes your army bigger. Now let's look at some sorceries. Foray of Orcs amasses for 2 and then deals damage equal to the army's power to an opponent's creature. The next card is Language. I like this one because it gives all creatures -4/-4, but your army usually survives this. Next up, Surrounded by Orcs. You amass 3 and then target player mills X cards equal to the army's power. Swarming of Moria is also great. You create a treasure and amass 2 orcs. Next up, Treason of Isengard. Put 1 instant or sorcery from the graveyard on top, amass 2 orcs. I also played 2 copies of this card. Mordor's Muster is really a value card. You draw some cards, you amass some orcs, and you will amass X orcs with Summons of Saruman. You can also then play an instant or sorcery spell with mana value X or less from those milled cards for free. Now time to look at some instants. We start with Orcish Medicine, very simple. You give a creature lifelink or indestructible and you amass orcs 1. Then we need to play Terminate as we play black and red. Great removal spell in the deck. And Croesus' Charm is also a great card in these colors, blue, black and red. Very flexible card. Next up, you come to a river. With this one you can give your army unblockable, or you can bounce another creature. Or you can stall the opponent by giving a creature -1/-3 and surprisingly amass some orcs. And we needed to play a counter, so this one is also great. You counter a spell and amass some orcs. Now let's look at some artifacts we are playing. Not a lot of them. Grant the Gatebreaker costs 4 mana. You can crew it for 3, but as long as you have an army, it's already a creature. And then I play this Relic of Sauron for the mana fixing. Talking about mana, let's talk about some lands now. As we play 3 colors, we need to have a lot of mana fixing. I like Sulphurous Springs in this deck. I also play a copy of Underground River and 1 copy of Shivan Reef. So these pain lands are in the deck. Of course, the orcs also like their worship, so I also play some temples of all 3 colors. Temple of Deceit, Temple of Malice and Temple of Epiphany. They are all in the deck. Next up, I also play a Dragonskull Summit. I also play a Drowned Catacomb, and last but not least, I also play a Sulphur Falls, all from the Lord of the Rings. Sunken Hollow is great because I play enough basics to make it come into play untapped, as well as Smoldering Marsh. I also play the Dryland Crumbling Necropolis, comes into play tapped but gives all 3 colors. Then Shipwreck Marsh is also a great dual land that I will play in the deck together with Stormcarved Coast. I also play some basics, 2 islands, 3 mountains and 3 swamps, and of course to top it all up I play Barad-dûr, great on flavor for the black mana and to amass some orcs, and also the Black Gate, which has the option to give your army unblockable. So I hope you liked my orc deck. You can build it for around $50 US. Really fun, flavorful deck to play. Thanks a lot for checking out my channel Casual MTG Decks, and I hope to see you soon. Keep it casual. Bye.
Grok. This tastes kind of weird.